Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of honors, the national anthem by Mr. Calvin Drake, and the invocation by Chaplain Scott Carson.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, of the brave? Woo!
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I invite you to pray with me. Creator of heaven and earth, you have shed your grace upon these United States in prosperity and when confronted by our adversaries. And you have enabled us with brave patriots who, when called upon by the people of this great nation, left the comforts of home and the familiarity of their peaceful neighborhoods to become noble warriors defending liberty on freedom's frontiers. This day we join the people of our beloved country in honoring a soldier wounded in combat in days long ago with this award of gallantry. May First Lieutenant retired Fikes and his loved ones be filled with pride as he receives this long-belated Silver Star for his courage in battle. And may all witnessing this ceremony remember the sacrifices of those who have worn our military's uniform. And now, Lord, we ask for divine protection over all of our service members deployed in harm's way. Encourage our wounded warriors, and may your presence rest upon our nation's Gold Star families. Continue to bless us with ordinary citizens who, for their love of country, emulate these same courageous actions we recognize today. And with humble and grateful hearts we pray, God bless the United States of America. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We wish to welcome the many distinguished guests who have joined us here today. Mrs. Linda Vi, the spouse of General Vi, Commanding General, U.S. Army Materiel Command. Congressman Mo Brooks, representative for Alabama's 5th Congressional District. State of Alabama's Lieutenant Governor Kay Ivey. Command Sergeant Major James K. Sims, Command Sergeant Major, U.S. Army Materiel Command. City of Madison Mayor, Mayor Troy Trulock. And Mr. Joe Fitzgerald, civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, North Alabama. And a special welcome to the family and friends of First Lieutenant retired Phillip B. Fikes, Mrs. Frances Fikes, spouse of First Lieutenant Fikes, Miss Lisa Crabb, daughter of First Lieutenant Fikes, and her spouse, Mr. Michael Crabb, as well as her daughter, Mrs. Mary Margaret Crabb, and son, Chip Crabb. Mrs. Amy Montgomery, daughter of First Lieutenant retired Fikes, and her spouse, Mr. Logan Montgomery. Dr. Jerry Fikes, brother of First Lieutenant retired Fikes, and his spouse, Mrs. Jenny Fikes. Mr. Richard Fikes, brother of First Lieutenant Fikes, and his spouse, Mrs. Dee Dee Fikes. And Mr. Jimmy Adams and Mrs. Janice Adams, brother and sister-in-law of First Lieutenant retired Fikes. We would also like to welcome all of Team Redstone's general officers, senior executive service members, colonels, warrant officers, sergeants major, DA civilians, contractors, and veterans in the attendance today. We want to thank you all for taking time this afternoon to be with us to honor First Lieutenant Fikes. At this time, I would like to introduce other participants in today's ceremony. Our music today is provided by the United States Army Materiel Command Band. The Yellow Hammer Brass Quintet is under the leadership of Sergeant First Class Robert Pritchard. Large or small, the formations of our AMC band always make our ceremonies better. At the center of stage and bearing our national colors is the Team Redstone Color Guard, led by Sergeant First Class David Johnson. Please join me in a round of applause for these soldiers who have helped make today's ceremony special. Ladies and gentlemen, in today's ceremony, you will witness the presentation of the Silver Star Medal, a time-honored tradition that formally recognizes soldiers in front of their family, friends, peers, and a grateful nation for acts of valor while engaged in combat. The Silver Star was established by Act of Congress on 9 July 1918 and amended 25 July 1963. The Silver Star is the third highest award for bravery in combat given by the United States military. The Silver Star honors service personnel who display exceptional valor while engaged in military combat operations against an enemy force. Personnel can also be honored for their service with friendly foreign troops in combat situations, even if the opposing force is one with which the U.S. is not engaged in military conflict. Acts of heroism that earn a Silver Star, though not deserving of a Distinguished Service Cross or Medal of Honor, must have been performed with marked distinction according to the Pentagon. Well-known recipients include General Douglas MacArthur and George S. Patton, Senators John Kerry and John McCain, as well as AMC's own Mr. Randy Fleisig, who received the medal as a captain in the Marines. Also from the Army Materiel Command, former AMC Command Sergeant Major Ronald Riley. More recent recipients include Specialist Samuel Ray Crockett, serving as an explosive ordnance disposal technician while deployed to Afghanistan with no regard for his own well-being, successfully recovered 2 fallen comrades as well as their equipment during a capture or kill mission on October 5th, 2013. Another Silver Star recipient is Warrant Officer 1, Robert Hensley, while serving as an assistant detachment commander, distinguished himself by fearlessly engaging a large enemy force and coordinating fires to recover friendly forces trapped in the open and under heavy enemy fire on 9 March 2013. The Silver Star was first awarded in 1932 to replace the Citation Star, which had been pinned on the ribbon of a service medal and given for gallantry from the Spanish-American War to World War I. The U.S. military then allowed World War I veterans to apply to have the Citation Star converted to the Silver Star. Despite its name, the medal is mostly gold. Gold rays emanate from a tiny silver star, encircled by a golden laurel wreath, and then a larger gold star. The pendant hangs from a ribbon striped in red, white, and blue. An inscription on the back reads, "For gallantry in action." Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct honor and privilege to introduce the host of the ceremony, General Dennis L. Vi, Commanding General, United States Army Materiel Command.
Good afternoon, everyone. 45 years ago, in 1969, Apollo 11, riding upon engines built at Redstone Arsenal, took 3 Americans to the moon. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was in theaters. Get Back by the Beatles was #1 on the radio. And on television, America had just introduced a man named Brady who was busy with 3 boys of his own. And on a farm near the town of Woodstock, New York, 400,000 people gathered for what was billed as 3 days of peace and music. That same year, on the other side of the world, in the sweltering heat and rice paddies in Vietnam's Mekong Delta, a young man from Winfield, Alabama, crossed 100 meters of hostile terrain under constant enemy fire to rescue his fellow soldiers who were wounded and cut off from their platoon. Today we honor that man, First Lieutenant retired Phillip Fikes, and present him with the Silver Star, which is our nation's 3rd highest military combat decoration for gallantry in action. Before I tell you about this remarkable soldier and why our nation is honoring him today, I want to say how very pleased I am to see so many people attend this ceremony today. Our Vietnam veterans haven't always received the thanks and respect they deserved when they returned home. This ceremony today, however, reminds us all that our Vietnam veterans are indeed patriots who served with honor and will forever be deserving of our respect. So I'd like to welcome and recognize all our Vietnam veterans who are here this afternoon. Would you please stand? I want to thank Sergeant First Class Robert Pritchard, of course, and AMC Yellowhammer Brass Quintet for performing today and for taking us all back to 1969 with the Beatles a few minutes ago. That was very well done. Mr. Calvin Drake, what a wonderful rendition of our national anthem. To Chaplain Scott Carson, as always, thank you for your wonderful prayer for this family and also for our nation, and especially this color guard, who look outstanding today carrying our nation's colors. I'd like to personally recognize and welcome some of my very distinguished guests. Congressman Mo Brooks, thank you for being here today and taking time out of your schedule. Lieutenant Governor Kay Ivey, it's always wonderful to have you here, and thanks for spending so much time with us today here at Redstone Arsenal. Mayor Troy Trulock, it's great to see you again, Mayor. The civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, Mr. Joe Fitzgerald. My battle buddy at AMC, Command Sergeant Major Sims, members of the Madison County Military Heritage Commission, who I also want to thank for promoting interest in military heritage, and to all of our general officers, our senior executives, our military members, our department civilians, all of our contractor teammates, thanks for being here and honoring this great man and this great family. And last but not least, my better half, Linda, thank you for being here. You always make me look so much better. And last but certainly not least, the Fikes family. Phil's wife for 47 years, Frances, whom we will also honor today with the Outstanding Civilian Service Award for her service as an Army spouse and as a volunteer and leader in the community. Their oldest daughter, Lisa, from Nashville, Tennessee, and her husband, Trey, along with their children, Mary Margaret, 17, and Chip, 13. Enjoyed speaking with them earlier today. Their daughter, youngest daughter, Amy, from Montgomery, and her husband, Logan. Phil's younger brothers, Jerry and his wife, Jenny, from Tuscaloosa, and Richard and his wife, Dee Dee, from Jasper. And Francis' brother, Jimmy Adams, and his wife, Janice, who drove over from Bogalusa, Louisiana. So great to have you here with us as well. Thank you all for being here. I know this means a great deal to Phil and Francis that you could share in this very important day. What a great day it is for our United States Army. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, Phil is from Winfield, Alabama, a small town about 2 hours southwest of here in Marion County. He came from a military family. His father, Robert Fikes, was an aviator in the U.S. Army Air Corps during World War II. After his father was discharged, he went to school on the GI Bill, became a dentist, and practiced for many years in Winfield. Dr. Fikes is now at Tut Fan State Veterans Home on Meridian Street here in Huntsville. And although he couldn't be here today, I know he is very, very proud of his son. Although Phil attended the Columbia Military Academy in Tennessee during high school and took ROTC courses during his first 2 years at the University of Alabama in the mid-1960s, he didn't seriously consider joining the military. He had other plans. Then one of Phil's classmates set him up on a blind date with a Phi Mu pledge from Louisiana named Francis Adams. And as we can clearly see today, it must have worked. Phil and Francis hit it off, and they were soon married. And so it was 1966, and Phil decided to leave the University of Alabama with his new bride and to join the United States Army. Our involvement in Vietnam was escalating, and the casualties were mounting. Even though Phil knew he'd probably be deployed to Southeast Asia, he said simply it didn't scare him. Francis supported the idea, but was a little worried about what Phil initially wanted to do. He wanted to fly planes. Francis said, no way. So Phil said, how about helicopters? And Francis responded, think again, sweetheart. So he thought about that for a little while and came back, how about the paratroopers? Francis probably said, really? You know, but you probably didn't say that back in those days. So Francis said if she wasn't comfortable with the idea of him actually flying an airplane, she certainly wasn't comfortable with the idea of him jumping out of one. So they settled on the infantry, and that at least keep Phil's feet on the ground or in a Jeep. Phil was admitted into officer candidate school, graduated, and was commissioned an infantry officer in the United States Army in March of 1968. Lieutenant Fikes arrived in Vietnam in January of 1969 and was assigned to lead 1st Platoon, Company D, 3rd Battalion, 60th Infantry Regiment, the River Raiders. His unit was assigned to be part of the 2nd Brigade of the Mobile Riverine Force, which was a joint U.S. Army and U.S. Navy force that operated along the Mekong River in Vietnam. The River Raiders' job was to secure the area in and around the Mekong Delta. But the river, its many tributaries, and the rice paddies, swamps, and flooded areas made it incredibly difficult to patrol and equally dangerous to fight in. They would go out on patrol for 3 days at a time, moving down open rivers, hiking through the dense jungles, and then recover for a couple of days before doing it all over again. In February, Lieutenant Fikes' platoon was inserted into the jungle and encountered a company-sized unit of North Vietnamese fighters. After the battle was over, 50 enemy fighters were dead on the battlefield, and Lieutenant Fikes earned his first Bronze Star with Valor for his decisive leadership during the engagement. In early May, a platoon from his company was surrounded by the Viet Cong and was in danger of being overrun. Lieutenant Fikes and his platoon were given the rescue mission. After being inserted into the area, Lieutenant Fikes directed his platoon to begin making its way to the wounded and established a safe area for evacuation. As the enemy approached, Lieutenant Fikes called in artillery fire so close to his own position that he remembered dirt and mud hitting his face when the shells impacted. For his courageous actions and excellent leadership under fire that day, Lieutenant Fikes was awarded his second Bronze Star with Valor. Later that same month, on May 23rd, his platoon was inserted in the Quien Hoa province for a reconnaissance mission. They came under immediate and intense fire from 3 directions. Seeing that his men were separated, nearly surrounded, wounded, and in danger of being overrun, Lieutenant Fikes crossed 100 meters of the battlefield under withering machine gun fire to help his wounded soldiers. He began leading them to an evacuation site, but realized the fire was too intense for a safe withdrawal. So he turned around and he led an assault on the Viet Cong unit, destroying several fighting positions and turning the tide of the battlefield long enough to evacuate the wounded soldiers. Once again, Lieutenant Fikes displayed remarkable valor and selfless service on the battlefield. But 3 days later, on May 26, just a few days before Lieutenant Fikes was about to go on R&R, rest and relaxation, his life would be forever changed. He and his platoon were setting up camp the night after a mission. It was dusk, and he was checking positions around the camp when a soldier called out and said he had shot a Viet Cong soldier. So Lieutenant Fikes began walking towards that soldier's position. And that's when he hit a booby trap. He remembered a loud explosion and then being rocked backwards. He touched the side of his head, and then he looked down, and his hand was covered in blood. And then he blacked out. He awakened 3 days later in a hospital in Saigon, and remembered that the doctors said they weren't able to remove all the shrapnel. And then he blacked out again. When he awakened the second time, he realized he couldn't feel the left side of his body. He said it was a horrible feeling. A few days later, he was sent to Japan and then on to Fort Sam Houston in Texas. Lieutenant Fikes came home with 3 Purple Hearts and 115 metal stitches. He lost part of his thumb. His knee was busted, and the doctors had placed a plate in his skull. He couldn't use his left arm or his left leg. The rehabilitation specialist examined him, his leg, his arm, and then bluntly said, "Lieutenant Fikes, I can get you walking first or riding first. It's your choice." Lieutenant Fikes chose to try and walk again first. And with Francis by his side, and after many months of hard work, he began to take a few short steps, then longer steps, and eventually regained the ability to walk. He wanted to stay in the Army to find something meaningful to do for his fellow soldiers. However, as a result of his injuries in December 1969, after 2 years, 7 months, and 29 days of valiant and distinguished service, First Lieutenant Fikes was medically retired from the United States Army. The next month, Phil and Francis were both back at the University of Alabama. Phil was determined to finish his degree in accounting, while Francis earned her degrees in education and interior design. Phil and Francis moved to Huntsville in 1979 and raised a wonderful family and built remarkable careers. Phil worked as a local accountant for 41 years before retiring last December, and Frances was an interior decorator for 35 years before she retired last year as well. When asked if he'd join the U.S. Army again, knowing what he knows now, Phil replied without a second thought, yes. He said, and I quote, "I'm glad to have done the right thing at the right time," unquote. How much greater our country would be if more Americans thought like Phil Fikes. Phil and Frances served their country honorably. They raised a family and helped build their community. Simply said, their lives are models of American patriotism, service, and sacrifice. I had the honor of meeting Phil last year when he was inducted into the Madison County Military Heritage Commission Hall of Heroes. I remember being so impressed by his humble nature. Shortly after the Hall of Heroes ceremony, at the urging of a friend, Phil requested his complete personnel record from the U.S. Army so the Military Heritage Commission could preserve the record. When it arrived in the mail, Phil noticed something he hadn't seen before, a notation that the U.S. Army had awarded him the Silver Star for his actions on May 23rd when he crossed that battlefield and rescued those soldiers. For reasons lost to time, perhaps because of the intense fighting and the fact that Phil was quickly evacuated after sustaining severe combat injuries, the Silver Star was never officially presented. So now, 45 years later, I am so very proud and deeply honored on behalf of our United States Army to finally complete the mission and present the Silver Star to First Lieutenant Retired Phillip B. Fikes, United States Army.
At this time, we ask Command Sergeant Major Sims to please join the Commanding General and Lieutenant Fikes on stage for the presentation of the Silver Star. Attention to orders. The United States of America, to all who shall see these presents, greetings. The President of the United States of America, authorized by the Act of Congress, 9 July 1918, has awarded the Silver Star to First Lieutenant Phillip B. Fikes, United States Army, for gallantry in action involving close combat with an armed hostile force in the Republic of Vietnam. First Lieutenant Fikes distinguished himself by exceptionally valorous actions on 23 May 1969 while serving as a platoon leader with Delta Company, 3rd Battalion, 60th Infantry on a reconnaissance and force mission in Kinh Hoa Province. Immediately after being inserted, the company began receiving heavy automatic weapons fire from 3 sides. Ignoring the danger of the situation, Lieutenant Fikes immediately moved forward to help those who had been wounded in the initial burst of fire. He crossed the 100 meters of fire-swept terrain between himself and the casualties and then began helping them to an evacuation site. In the middle of his efforts with the wounded, he halted long enough to lead an assault on the enemy positions, destroying several and lessening the volume of fire to the extent that he could finish evacuating the wounded. First Lieutenant Fikes' extraordinary heroism in close combat is in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflects great credit upon himself, the 9th Infantry Division, and the United States Army. Signed, the Honorable John M. McHugh, Secretary of the Army. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, we ask Mrs. Linda Vi and Mrs. Frances Fikes to please come forward and join the Commanding General on stage. General Vi will now present the Department of the Army Outstanding Civilian Service Medal to Mrs. Frances Fikes. It reads, the Department of the Army's Outstanding Civilian Service Medal is awarded to Mrs. Frances Fikes for extraordinary public service in support of soldiers, civilians, and families from 1967 to 2014. Mrs. Fikes' dedicated and exceptional service as an Army spouse and, most importantly, as a leader and community volunteer has had tremendous influence on service to the Army and the nation. As a result of her efforts to strengthen communities and to create global change by supporting the arts, preserving natural resources, advancing education, promoting healthy lifestyles, and encouraging civic involvement, Mrs. Fikes has enhanced the lives of many others through her volunteer services with numerous organizations, such as the Huntsville Hospital Foundation, the Museum of Art, the Botanical Gardens, and the General Federation of Women's Clubs. The Army and the nation will remain forever grateful for her dedicated service, which serves as an inspiration to many and a guiding light to all. Signed, Dennis L. Vi, General, U.S. Army, Commanding. Thank you, General Vi, Mrs. Fikes, and Sergeant Major Sims. Will you please take your seats? Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor and privilege to introduce to you this extraordinary American veteran, First Lieutenant retired Phil Bernard Fikes.
Thank you all. Can I hide mine? Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming today. I do not have to tell those of you who know me I'm a little nervous. I don't know which is harder, standing here today or crossing that rice paddy. Standing before you today, I do want to say to General Vi and Mrs. Vi, Frances and I appreciate the time and effort that you and everyone at AMC put into this ceremony. Thank you both. To the many wonderful people Frances and I have met and dealt with in getting us prepared for today, thank you, I think. To my wife, your love healed and sustained me. To my children and grandchildren, you have blessed me. To my brothers and their wives, your support has carried me. To my brother-in-law and his wife, your support for Frances and for me has been inspirational. And to my many friends, your companionship has enriched me. Thank you. Thank you all for being part of my life and for being here today to share in this ceremony. I met many brave men and women during my time in the U.S. Army and Vietnam. Some did not come home, others did, but were changed forever. I am just grateful that I came home at all and came home to a nation that gave me the opportunity to live a peaceful and blessed life. with my wife, my children, and my grandchildren. And while the Silver Star was presented to me, I can only accept it on behalf of the soldiers who I had the honor and privilege of serving with in Vietnam. So for them and for me, I say thank you, and God bless America.
Well done.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and join in singing the Army song. The words can be found on the back of your program. Please remain standing as the colors are retired from the auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. On behalf of General Vi and Sergeant Major Sims, thank you for your attendance.